Hello, this is the intermediate training for IMP on After Effects, which will cover animating your Illustrator characters in After Effects. My name is Tina LeBaron, and let's get started. I'm sure you can tell this is not After Effects, and that's because you have to do some prep work on your object to get it to animate properly. One of the considerations in After Effects is that you need to import your object in here. And if we were to go Import, File, the nice news is that we can import our character. If we import it as footage, it will either import one layer or it will merge it all to one object. If we wanted to retain the layer size, we could do that. And when I open this, what you'll notice is that it has all my elements, but just combined the way I had them on the layer. So for instance, I had the 2 feet on one layer, and it won't let me animate those separately. I could sit there and double click, it will just open these up in the preview view. So where a lot of the time lies in animating is honestly separating your object so that it will animate correctly. I have a head layer here. What I would do is figure out which parts can be together and which parts shouldn't be. So maybe I change this to head poof. And in this layer, I'm just going to keep the head poof. Then I'll make another layer, and this might be called nose. I'll make another one for mouth. And it's now my job to move all of these objects into the proper layer and make sure that they're in the right order so that nothing's appearing over something that it shouldn't. Think about what you want to move separately. For instance, if each ear should move separately, those need to be on their own layer. Just because there's so many layers, I actually pulled the layer tab out and undocked it so I could see it a little better. There were about 2 things I wanted to show. One is if I wanted these 2 layers underneath and I had this one open so that the carrot was there, it's going to keep docking it as a child there. I don't want that. So anytime I want to move a layer, I can actually click the carrot down, and then if I wanted the back paws under it, I could click and drag that down. Also, so that you don't have to copy and paste everything, you can just click and drag it. Here's how it's put together. The head poof is one layer. Let's minimize that. The ear is under that. The nose is there. The mouth is there. It has 2 gray spheres to hide this tongue when it goes up. Tongue is there. My nose poof is there. Right eye highlight and right eye color are different. That way, just so if it looks somewhere different, I can move the highlight. We have our head there. Head shadow is underneath, just in case I kind of want to make it look up or down. I can change that shadow separately. My right ear is there. Left paw is there. Left leg, right leg, right paw. This way I can rotate those paws on separate axes. I'll show you what that means. And this is a more advanced project. Like, this is where my students usually end with their 2D. This is a little more complex to start with if you're like, wow, my students couldn't handle this initially. And I normally start with something simpler like a smiley face, and we can make that all in After Effects. I'll show you how to make that as well. But now that I'm done this, I'll go ahead and do a save as, and I'm going to call this Norabelle Side Animate, just so that I know this is the one I want to bring in to animate. And now we'll go ahead in After Effects and import this. But when we import this, we'll go to Import, File, we'll find our side character animate, and instead of animating it as footage, we'll go ahead and do a composition, retain layer size, and this will import it all as a separate object. For that import options, it will create a composition. Now when I say import, and I double click on that, I have a composition set up with all of my layers already, so I can kind of run through them. I know I said this was a little harder, so just to show you a very basic one, if you wanted to start with it, I could have another composition, and part of the beauty of After Effects is you can kind of double click and go in between your compositions and animate them separately. So for a comp 1, a good starter for a character might be something as simple as draw an ellipse, Give it a flesh tone if you want. Don't give it a flesh tone if you don't want. Whatever. Call that, the face. Let's rename. And then just making sure that whatever I do, when I draw my next shape, I'll go ahead and change the color on that. And that layer is on top. Good enough. I can click it around, I can move it. And normally in these first demos, I do make mine a little wonky so that if the student is having some trouble, it's okay. From there, we can look at the path, the ellipse, the fill, transform position, and then I can just kind of move it around. If I wanted this one to move, I can do that. Go to this position. See, wrong one. Move it this way. And now, go over here, move it again. Move it again. And now I have some basic animation. This is normally where I tend to start my students for objects like this. But I know you want to see how to animate a character, so let's go back to that. I'll go ahead and close Comp 1. I didn't get rid of it. If I wanted it back, I could always double click, but I don't want to accidentally click in between them. So here is Norbell. Yay. It's my dog. And if I wanted to do something like animate the left ear, this will take some setup because I want to look at where the anchor point is, and that's where the object's going to move around. Now, this is where you might be a little mad at me because I showed you how to manually move it in the last lesson. That was partly because the students will see it and always just try to drag it or move it there. So I do like showing them that's how that system works. From here though, if you click on this, this will let you drag and move any of the anchor points. So if I decided the ear should move around that object, I can just drag that, and I can test it by maybe going ahead and doing a slight rotation and saying, okay, that's where it's going to move around. Great. So this gets a little boring, but this is where we'll go through and we'll double check all our anchor points. All of this is okay being centered. The big parts that probably aren't okay being centered are one, the head. If we want it to rotate around the neck, we'll go ahead and put it kind of more positioned where the neck is. That also means that if you want the nose poof and such like that to move with it, we could go ahead and also put the anchor in the same spot. Now the other thing you can do is there's a parent and link function here. If we want everything to move with the head, we could go through and grab all of these and move them all to the head. And so what that's going to do is that hopefully, and I don't have them all done now, but hopefully when I go to my head and I rotate it by clicking, transforming, and rotating the head, those objects now move with it. That's one reason I have everything set up this way, is that I know everything before should really be linked with the head. And the head in itself should then be linked with the body. This is another part where I'll let you go through and change all of them. My paw will actually be linked to the same leg. So I want to go left front leg. Left front leg is linked to the body. The other thing about these are that we want to consider where their pivots move. The right ear, we're moving the pivot up here. And then as we go to the paw should really kind of move on the base of the leg, so we might move it to the start there. Once again, once we think we have the position right, we can always go to transform, rotate, double check, how's that look? So my legs pivot should be up here, my paw pivot's there, and then you'll be able to check if the parenting worked, because now when I go through and I rotate my anchor point, whoopsie, not there. when I rotate my leg, the paw will move with it. And now we're doing the rest for the paw. We can double check to make sure that we moved all the pivots. I don't think I did with these last objects. And once again, this is a pretty time-intensive process. It's really, I think, honestly, preparing the files for animation takes just as much or more time than actually animating it. So I'll give you some time to get all of that ready. Now that we're done setting up our character, what we can do is go through and animate. This is usually a pretty long project, so I'd usually give your students at least a week to finish any kind of 2D animations they want to do, and those are even simple ones. But let's say we just wanted the dog to look over and then have its ears raise. We could go through and maybe, just to add a little bit of character, we'll go to our transform position. We'll zoom in a bit. We'll go ahead and move that position up a little on the Y, like it's sniffing. These are 15 frames, so this is like 1 second. So go ahead and move that back down. Let's go move it up again. Move it down. And maybe at this point we want the eyes to move over, so we'll go to those right eye, transform position. And we're also going to go to the rotation and turn those both on. We'll go to the left eye highlight. Since I turned all those on, it should have automatically set a keyframe on those areas. And if for some reason it didn't, remember you can set those by clicking these keyframes here. Click the whole thing. Oh well. I'll go ahead and move the position over here. And just because it looks kind of funny with the eye rotated that way, that's why I turned on the rotation. I'll rotate it so that the kind of shine moves that way. I'll move my left eye as well, turning on my position and my rotation, making sure that my current time indicator is in the right spot first. So let's go ahead and turn on that position and that rotation again. Line it up to the other one. I'll put that 72 here. And we'll go ahead and move the position over on the X. Looks like that 72, oh, because I had a negative 72, right? Well, those two look about right. So now we'll see that the dog sniffs. We can zoom out a little, click off it so we see the animation so far. Goes sniff, sniff, move over. Ooh, it looks like my eye rotated completely the wrong way. So I'm going to go ahead and on that rotation, I'm just going to erase that. I was not happy with that rotation. I'll turn it back on. I'll zoom in. And with my position there, I'll go ahead and just manually rotate it to make sure it's rotating the right way this time. And then from there, maybe the dog's ears raise up. So we'll find that right ear, minimizing the rest of the ones we don't need to use. So we'll go ahead and minimize the nose. We'll turn on the rotation for the right ear and the left ear. From there, we'll go rotate up. And we'll go to left up. And then now this is my animation so far. Now, if those are kind of really short, really small, if I wanted that to be a much quicker action, I can go to those areas and just click and drag the keyframe. And this is going to be the animation timing. Boop. So maybe we want it even quicker. There we go. So I kind of like it there. I like that quick response. So let's go drag the other keyframe for the other ear so it matches the same area. Boop. And there we go.